Welcome to Paranormal United States. This is episode 20. And this is a very special episode because the day we're recording this is Greg's birthday. Happy birthday, Greg.
Thank you very much. Thank you very
How,
much.
how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay. It's another year. Was quite lucky today. My manager bought me a vanilla latte, which I've not had before, from a certain
Nice.
well-known brand, and I loved it. So,
Nice.
yeah, thank you, Kelly, for that.
Yeah, so we are heading to Maine. What have you got for us?
Yeah, so I would like to talk to you about one of the most insane little towns in Maine, which, as you can see, we're in the top left, right, depending which way we're looking at it, the top eastern side of the
Yeah.
United States with Maine. So there is a creepy small town in Maine which has got insane paranormal activity, which you'll hear about
Awesome.
over the coming few minutes. So from haunted roads to spooky bed and breakfasts to opera houses with unexplained sounds, Maine has a fair few ghostly places. But did you know that there's an entire town in Vacation Land, as Maine is called, that can be considered the most haunted of them all? If you can't keep track of each individual paranormal location by state, go to Bucksport, which is a small town in Maine, and you'll find some pretty insane paranormal activity in just that one place. So I'm going to cover off a few of those.
Cool.
So strap yourself in and get ready.
Looking
So the
forward to
first
it.
one, so the first one is Buck's Tomb, the infamous or famous, depending on how you're going to look at it, Buck's Tomb. This is the reason why Bucksport is the most haunted town in Maine. This is referencing the famous tombstone of Colonel Jonathan Buck. He's the founder of Bucksport, fell in love with a woman who later gave birth to his son. Upon learning of this, he forced her to leave. She soon returned to Colonel Buck, requesting assistance in caring for his son, which he refused. So he's a bit of an arsehole, really. To ensure that she would not bother him again, he pronounced her a witch and had her burned.
Ah,
Yeah,
one way to get rid
painful.
of people.
That is one way to. Probably wouldn't work so much nowadays, but back then, absolutely. During the fire, her leg was fetched by her son, who ran away to bury it on his own as a memorial to his mother. And after Colonel Buck's death, his own tomb showed stains in the form of a leg. And despite attempts to remove it, including changing the stone for a new one, the leg image remained, and it's
Ah.
still there today. I don't know if you can see it. Well,
Yeah, I gotta say, looks like there's some head. I think that looks like shape of a
yep,
leg.
that's it. So that is the stain that, even though they've changed the rock and the stone on the memorial, it's still got a leg stain there. Pretty weird. Pretty weird. So following on from that, which in itself is pretty weird, we come to the cemetery for the lost red paint people. So yep, that was exactly
Right,
my
okay.
reaction when I started looking into this. The red paint people were in Maine long before anyone else. Whilst not much is known about this tribe of native people, we do know that they buried their dead in the land with red ochre. There are burial spots all over the town of Bucksport, but one well-known area is the current cemetery off McDonald Street. There are even traces of the red paint people in the older homes, where areas are painted red with ochre, just like the red paint people. Bucksport is full of areas where the burial grounds have been disturbed, create places for Mainers to live. And as you can imagine, there's lots of creepy goings on following this. And it's a lot of these towns' main sort of buildings are all on these burial grounds. And if you've
Right.
seen something like Poltergeist, the original Poltergeist, didn't end too well. I don't know if you can remember that film. It came out a bit before your time. So they built the house, not before my time, unfortunately. So they built a house on a burial ground and didn't remove the bodies or the cemeteries. And this is where the poltergeist came from. So,
Oh.
yeah, so that's a little bit about the cemetery, but you'll hear that as we go through. And we move on to this. This is the Robinson House, aka Jed Paltry's Senior Centre. So this is currently a senior home, or an old people's home for those in the UK, but was built all the way back in the 1780s. And as we've been doing these episodes, you'll know that is a particularly old building.
Yeah.
It does look a little bit dated, won't lie, but
Looks a bit like it's falling apart.
It does.
Like bent in the middle.
Yeah. But while you'll never guess it, the home has been used as a tavern and inn with plenty or questionable stories. When Maine was a dry state, back in the Prohibition days, the house is said to have been used for smuggling, hookers, and other nefarious criminal activity. It sat abandoned for about 2 years, and during this time it was investigated by ghost hunters, and they found it to be very haunted. Poltergeists, smugglers that have died, hookers that have died, all frequent this old people's home. Awesome. And obviously, I imagine there's some old people that frequent that old people's home since they passed as well. So that's another one of the many haunted or paranormal places. Moving on in this quick tour of Maine, Bucksport in Maine. This is the former Maine Seaboard paper company mill, so you can just sort of make it out. Sorry, I'm in a mirror image, so I'm trying to figure out where I am. So in 1930, the Maine Seaboard Paper Company opened in Bucksport. So what's that, 90 years ago now? It was also site of a large archaeological dig that revealed the site to be another burial ground for the red paint people. It is this disturbance of the burial site that the reason the mill has faced a number of unfortunate accidents, from fires to bad business. This place might have some serious bad luck. There's been deaths there, there's people dying, there's been murders, all relating to the fact that they've now since found that it was built on a burial ground. Harking back to the Poltergeist film, original one from the 80s, that's exactly what started happening there. So,
one of the insurance companies sort of like, we're not paying out, it's the burial ground that's causing
act of
this.
God. Yeah, I think that comes under, what is the term? Force majeure is an insurance phrase that you'll see on lots of insurance documents, which is basically act of God. So, out of the normal hands. So, I imagine, like you say, that's got to come under that.
Could do.
Yeah, an English insurance company, I go, you know what? No more. No more. Right, moving on swiftly. The disappearance of Sarah Ware. Sarah Ware was a well-known resident who went missing one night in 1898. Her body was later found headless. Her skull was found elsewhere. There were several theories about her disappearance and few people were tried, but the real story has never been known. She's now buried in her family's plot at Oak Hill Cemetery, and today the stories revolve around what is exactly in the cemetery. Is it her body? Is it her head? Or is it both? Or is it none? So, it is a disappearance. Normally, a disappearance isn't too odd, but when there's a dismembered head and nobody really found out what happened to her, and we don't know whether she's buried there or her head's buried there or what's buried there, lends its weight again to some weird happenings, all in one small town in Maine called Bucksport.
Crazy.
So the next one in Bucksport looks like a quaint little lake. This is the ghostly Silver Lake. So whilst beautiful, Silver Lake is actually a man-made body of water created to support the Bucksport Mill that we just covered off. But before the lake could be created, that's right, graves needed to be moved. Today, if you're at the lake, you'll see tombstones up on the hill. However, there's speculation that the speed of the work meant that some steps were overlooked, including the actual removal of the bodies along with the stones. So today there may just be bodies at the bottom of the lake, and it's also quite near where Sarah Ware's body was found, and some have reported seeing her ghost in the area. So another little odd place. Moving on. We've got the murder of the Trim family. So back in 1876, Robert Trim lived in a town with his daughter and granddaughter, and one night in October, neighbours found the Trim family barn on fire. Inside were the remains of Robert and his daughter, and his granddaughter was never found. A local Captain Smith was charged with the murders, and today you can drive down their street, Bucks Mills Road, and never guess that anything this horrible had happened. And you guessed it. It's on a burial ground.
Of course.
Of course. So, particularly odd one again. Like the Sarah Ware disappearance, the fact that she's seen reported around Silver Lake as well. Bit of an odd place to go. And we move on to the historic Penobscot, that's right, Penobscot River. It's the site of a fair few battles in Maine, and one of the most notable was the Penobscot expedition near Castine. It resulted in the largest loss of lives in US Navy until the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And closer to the town, the Battle of Hampton took place just above Bucksport. The river is also notable for its use in the Maine lumber industry, which also resulted in a number of deaths along its banks. And it's been seen that people who worked at the mill and in the lumber industry have been spotted as ghosts along the river.
Or was that a burial ground?
No, that wasn't a burial ground. Almost as bad as a burial ground, though. But anywhere where you're going to have the largest loss of life up to Pearl Harbor is going to have some pretty horrific things, and that is noted by the fact that people have seen ghosts and spirits walking across the river.
Wow.
And the last part of the area is this. And it's close, the river is close to its proximity to Prospect, which is home to haunted Fort Knox. So Fort Knox, some might drive past Prospect without the presence of Fort Knox. You wouldn't even sort of go there really. But it's the fort itself that gives the town its haunted appeal. Visitors to Fort Knox have reported seeing, hearing and even feeling ghostly presences when they explore the fort's cavernous inner workings. The fort has been featured in the paranormal investigation show Ghost Hunters, as well as the independent documentary by a team of Ghostbusters. The fort was never used in battle during the Revolutionary War, so no notable deaths have taken place here, but plenty of soldiers still manned it when it was operational. Some of them may have simply been going back to work, and they're the ones that have been spotted at Fort Knox.
Was that like the Fort Knox that is sort of quite famous?
No, this is a slightly different one, and I'm glad you asked that, because it's not the Fort Knox, but it is a Fort Knox.
Right. That's a bit underwhelming to be like.
Yeah, sorry.
It Fort Knox and stuff like
I did build it up a little
Fort
bit.
Knox.
I did build it up a little bit, so apologies for that. But yeah, so there with the Ghost Hunters programs and the independent documentary, they've witnessed soldiers going back to work in this particular fort. So very odd place, and all this has happened in a small town in Maine called Bucksport.
Wow, I've just been looking it up, and it's only like 5,000 population.
It's a tiny little place. Yeah, and like you think, I live in a town, quite a big town, and there's got to be 40 or 50,000 people, and there's some of these places 5,000 people is nothing really. It's like a village over here, I think. So in the UK, so yeah, proper odd place. Could be one for the bucket list, even if it's just to see this leg stain on a memorial. I think that'd be quite interesting. So
Definitely.
So that is the wrap up of episode 20, which is Maine.